Welcome back, everybody, to the MemSQL Developer live stream. Today we're going to take the API that we built last week and we're going to consume it with a View app that will do some really cool things, pulling in the data from our MemSQL database and being able to display that on the screen. In future episodes, we'll definitely dial that out and build out the full REST API. So let's dig in. Last week we built this live stream app, and all of this code is available up on GitHub, and so you can pull in this content from github.com/robrich/product-catalog, and that's live right now. That's where we left off. We've got the Node API, and we're in TypeScript, and we're able to pull that up from MemSQL. So let's fire up our MemSQL database. If you're like me, you stopped the Docker container, and so all of that is now off. Let's start that back up. We're in that directory, and here's that Docker compose YAML file. That Docker compose YAML file is the instructions that allows us to spin up the database really easily. Now, Docker compose up. What we see in this Docker compose YAML is that it's referencing this license key. How do we get that license key? I'm going to go back to this blog post that identifies how to pull that off. We'll just set our license key in an environment variable in our shell, and in that way then it definitely won't end up in source control. So here's that blog post. So we'll log into the portal. I'll click on licenses, grab my license key, and set that in my terminal, and I've done that previously. So Docker compose up will now spin our database back up. Now MemSQL's cluster in a box container will create a volume that will persist this data. So if you stopped it but didn't delete the volume, then you probably still have your database ready to go. Let's double check. I'm going to go to the portal, localhost:8080 will get me connected. And as we identified in the Docker compose file, our username is root, and we have no password. That's the defaults for the cluster in a box container. Let's take a look at our databases. So we don't have our database. It looks like that volume wasn't persisted. Yes, I actually deleted that on purpose. So let's go create that database again. Here in our folder, we have the setup.sql. So let's do exactly that. Now what I love is that in spite of the fact that I logged out and logged back in, it kept the current text that I had running in my SQL query view. So we're able to just pick right back up. We flipped over to the Acme database. Let's create our table again. This is going to be interesting. Here's that ID, our product code, that unique text-based identifier, a name, a description, properties that's a JSON object, and an active field. Let's insert a test value into that. Great, we've got our one row. Select star from catalog. There's our one row. Perfect. So now let's spin that Node app back up and create a View app that will sit inside of it. Now right now, all of our content is in one folder. So let's create a new folder for our API and move all of the non-API content into it. So I won't grab the README, I won't grab the SQL, I won't grab the Docker compose, but I will grab all of these pieces associated with that API. Let's move that into the API folder. Perfect. So now we have our API. npm run start. Now if we've created this API together with that .env file that identifies where that database is, then this will do the TypeScript compile and ultimately start up our API. Last week we used Postman to be able to look at this API and get a feel for pulling that data into place here on localhost 3000. Today let's use View to pull it in. We'll double check this API really fast though. Localhost:3000/API/product/1. Yeah, we connected to our database correctly. That's great. Okay, so next step, let's create a folder for our app. And inside our app folder, then we'll initialize Vue. I've downloaded the Vue CLI previously, so we can just grab content out of it. Vue create product catalog. This Vue CLI is really great in that it interviews us and asks us the questions about how we're going to build out this application. So I could choose all of the defaults. Nah, let's manually specify features. Babel, yeah, let's turn on TypeScript. Let's create a progressive web app. We'll definitely need router so that we can switch between pages. Vuex, that's a Flux store, a Redux store. We don't need that yet. It could be cool to pull in SCSS, but let's leave that off for now. And we definitely want to dial in unit testing in time, but for now, let's leave that off because we're just prototyping. So I'm going to do this. Would I like to use class style components? I'm going to say no. That was a suggestion that ultimately got replaced by the new APIs in Vue 3. Use Babel long TypeScript? Yes. Use history mode for the router? Yes. What type of linter would I like? ESLint. That sounds great. I'll lint on save and lint on fix on commit. That sounds great. In dedicated config files, no, I won't use this as a preset. So ultimately, this is going to run for a good long time, and it'll do a lot of npm install, which may take longer. Next up, we'll want to do Vue add Vuetify. Actually, let's go into our folder first. cd product catalog. Vue add Vuetify, and Vue add Vuetify will do all kinds of interesting things to pull in Vuetify, a material design library. Now that also will take a good long time to do it. So let's reach into our mythical oven and let's look at this app that already has those pieces built out. Now in this app, we have the package.config that identifies all of those dependencies. It's using Vue CLI service to do all the things. Here's our source folder where our main app starts. Here's our main entry point. So we see that we have plugins Vuetify pulled in, and we're starting up this Vue 2 app. Now because we're using router here in our main app, what we have is the main logo, and it's ready to go, but it's just pulling in Vuetify's Hello World component. We'll want to dial that in a little bit. Let's start up this app and go view how it looks. So here's that app, localhost 8080. And this is Vuetify. That's pretty cool. Here's the logo. We have this kind of material design look. We're not yet routing between pages, so let's do that. But our About page still works great. It's still using the old theme. Oh, nope. So let's dial in all of those pieces. First up, the router. Now that router is the one that's going to identify where the pieces go. And right now it says we'll pull in our home component if you hit slash, and if you go to a slash about, then you'll pull up the Vue's About page. Now we want to add a few more. Oh, I love this, the lazy loading that happens automatically. We want to add a product list, and that will pull in from Vue's product list. And we also want to add in a product detail page. :ID, that portion of the URL will get passed in as a parameter into the page, and so that works really well. Product detail. Great. Now we're not yet displaying the contents of each page, so let's come back to app.view, and instead of just showing hello world, we'll actually say router view. And this router view actually will render all of the pieces from each page right here in the place. Because we're no longer using hello world, let's remove it from our imports. Let's remove it from our components. And now if we fire up the page, now we'll get on the about page, we'll get the about content. And on the index page, we'll get the regular welcome to Vuetify content. Let's do a little bit more to dial out navigation up here. I'll reach into a stash where I've got a few things lined up. App.view. And let's pull in these two navigation pieces. Actually, let's pull in all of them. Okay. Now these V buttons are really interesting. The V button is Bootstrap's button, but wrapped in a Vue component so that we don't need to worry about all of the classes. And then two, here's that URL that we're going to. Now in time, we probably don't want product 1 in our menu, but this will be great for testing. Let's save this. It's going to go rebuild nicely. Ooh, failed to compile. 2 errors. In router index. Let's go look at that. The relative modules were not. Ooh, the relative modules were not found because we have not built them yet. That is correct. Let's go create some things. Here in our views folder, we'll create a new file, product list.vue. Is that what we called it? Yep, product list.vue. And here inside product list, we'll dial out our 3 view sections. Template, div, h1, product list. Script, lang equals ts for TypeScript. Now because this is TypeScript, we can do export default. That's a regular component where we just export default. But because it's TypeScript, we want to be able to tell TypeScript what type this is. So let's import Vue from Vue. And instead of just export default, we'll say Vue.extend. And because Vue.extend pulls in, here's some TypeScript magic, pulls in content around what it wants that Vue object to be. Now it knows what type of object this is, and so we'll get great IntelliSense. Style. Now this will be scoped, so all of the styles that we build will only apply to this. It'll actually rewrite the styles, which works out great. That's great. We've got our product list. Let's create a product detail. New file. Product detail.vue. Here's our product detail page. Okay. TypeScript's going to do that recompile. Looks like everything's great, no errors. Perfect. So here's our about page. It's wonderfully empty. Our home page, which shows our original Vue content. Welcome to Vuetify. Here's our product list, which shows nothing, and our product detail that shows also nothing. So we have a product detail page. Here in our product detail page, let's do something like this. So data return. Now I want to get the ID, and it's currently 0. We don't have an ID yet. And our product, that will be a product. Now that product, const product, is of type product equals undefined. Now it's actually not just a product, it'll be a product or undefined. And that way we know what type this is. Okay, product. Let's define what this product means. Here inside source, I'm going to create a new folder, types, and in types, I will create a new file, product .ts. Export interface product. And what will this product be? Well, let's go look at our SQL of how we created the table and see what fields we need to pull in. So we have ID that is of type number. We have product code that is of type string. Name is also string. Description is of type string. Properties is an object. And active is a Boolean. That's awesome to be able to tell TypeScript the type of thing that it is, so that now back in our product, now we know we can bind interesting pieces into this product. Ooh, can't find import product from types product. Okay. So now we've got, did I do that folder correctly? Yep. There we go. Now we know what type product is, and now we know that this is of type product. So now if we were to bind things, we could say product.name, and it would display the product. Oh, so we need to go load that product. View lifecycle events. So we can go look into, oh, there's the router. The view lifecycle components. I Googled view lifecycle component, view lifecycle, and I landed here. Here's a before create event, a created event, before mount, mounted. Mounted sounds like the right thing. Mounted is where we have all of the pieces, but it isn't running yet. Okay, so let's override mounted and go do stuff. Mounted. Here in our mounted function, we want to here in our mounted function, we want to do something like const product equals await fetcher get product ID. So that'll be /API/product/ID. Where do we get this ID? Well, the ID, const ID equals the params, so the router params. Let's go grab it from right here. Const ID equals route.params.id. Awesome. So let's grab that ID. Let's pass that in here to this fetcher. Now we have our product. Oh, this is an async method because we're awaiting something. And then we can say this.product equals product. Awesome. Oh, this.id. Okay, fetcher. Import fetcher from services fetcher. Now we could just do an Axios Ajax method right in the middle here, product, but this fetcher allows to rewrite some things. Source, new folder, services, new file, fetcher.ts. Export default function, fetcher, and this will take a method that is a method, and it'll take a URL, which is a string, and it will return a T. Well, what is T? It is whatever you expect of it. So if I look here, here's a fetcher. Oh, we haven't imported Axios yet. Let's do some interesting things here. let's also pull in Axios, import import star as Axios from Axios, and we'll also want to npm install that. Axios, once we've npm installed it, will also include things like method. Now the cool thing about method, import, let me just copy that whole line, that whole import. Now we could do something interesting like saying it's one of these methods, but by using Axios's method, we've got that ready to go. So we'll say it's a method, and we'll have a T result. Let's await Axios doing that method, URL data. Ooh, you may pass in for a post method an optional data, and that is an any. And then I'm going to say validate status. Ooh, this is async. Validate status, where typically I would say always return 200s and throw on non-200s. I want to handle non-200s myself. Now this isn't a T result, but rather a promise of a T result. But you may want to take extra measure if you're going to do this. So let's create this response class. And this response class of T result, this response will allow us to do some interesting things. Let's go grab that out of the types folder. Or did I? Oh, I defined it right here. Response. Now you may want to know the status code, headers. You definitely want your data. And here's an OK where you can just say, is that good? Is that not good? Now that we've got this fetcher in place, we know that we're not just returning a product, but rather we're returning a result of product. Promise response of product. Well, I haven't told it what type of T it is, so it's of product. Now we can say if this dot error equals product response dot status is greater than or equal to 500. This dot product equals response dot data, and now we can make some choices. So we have our product object, but we may have an error. So what if we do something like this? Product detail. Now we bound the product name, but let's create this not found component if we don't have a product and we're not errored. Let's create this error component if we did error, and this product detail component if we have other content. And that way, this component isn't going to really render anything. It will just pick whether it got the right answer. So let's pull in the components for error, not found, and product detail, and we'll set those in place here in our app. Source, components. Okay, taking a look through those, here's the error component. It just says, hey, you got an error. Now I am passing in a status property that was required, so I can say, hey, this is a 500 error. And depending on your audience, that may not be necessary. The not found page, here's our favorite 404 page. We don't need any other detail. And then here in the product detail, we can start doing things like that. So we'll bind our product name, we'll bind our product description. Here, this vcard, this is great material design content where we're reaching into that Vuetify library to do really interesting things. So let's fire up our app now with all these components created. I bet I got a compile error. Type product is not assignable to type undefined. Yes. So this here in this page. This may be, we may not have gotten a product back. In the case of undefined, this could be undefined. So where is that error again? Rows.data. Type product or undefined is not assignable to type undefined. Okay. Let's go diff this component and see where we got that wrong. Views, product detail. Oh, I haven't pulled in all of my components. That'll definitely help. Let's dial out that component section that tells what components we're using. Oh, we definitely need the errored data. Great. That was a good fix-up. So looking at that product detail again, we're now going to take that product and get the rest of that detail. That's perfect. Now let's fire this up. Don't use object. Did I define that differently? Let me go diff that. Types, products. I think we might have some TSLint rules that are failing us. Okay, so let's fire this back up. And we see an error. I'm going to switch over to the network tab, and we see that we're actually not loading the response. Now that makes sense. Here in this view app, when I call /API, it's going to reach out to the view app. It's not going to reach out to the API. Let's add another configuration setting here in our view.config.js. Inside view.config.js, I can, that's not it. I can specify a dev server that will proxy requests that it doesn't understand into particular places. Now I can choose to do it only for particular things, and that looks like what I want. So let's go into view config.js and let's go grab that dev server setup, and I'll set that into place. Do I need to restart it to get that to take effect? Let's give that a shot. Oh, I also need to, I still have my API running on port 3000. So here in the config, I'm going to, anything that starts with /API will get redirected off to localhost 3000. Okay, so now with that product list built, let's go hit that product page. Now we're waking up the Node API. Oh, we're still building. Okay, almost there. Almost ready. Almost ready. Almost ready. Oh, this is so much fun. Okay. Okay, let's fire up our page. We're going to go off and hit 1. And here's my response. Oh, here's where we hit it. 1, and here's my response. We've got our product out of the database through that API. Now I did a little bit of styling here, showing the JSON values and bubbles. Thank you to cat ipsum and place kitten for the text here. And now we've got this ready to go. So next time, let's dial out the product list. We'll need to make changes both to our API and to our app to make this happen. And this was a lot of fun. You can grab this code on github.com/robridge/product catalog. We'll see you next week on the MemSQL Developer Livestream.